All right, welcome to your stretching session. This evening, we are going to be working through our stretches for our hips. I have a couple of stretches here for you. So we're going to move through four different poses. We'll have two where they're the asymmetrical poses where we do a right side, left side, and then we have two symmetrical ones where we're just going to jump right into it. You will need a couple of props. So a couple of blocks, two, at least two. Um, I guess if you have a chair nearby, you could always have that handy. Any other blocks or props that you want to use, have those handy as well. A blanket, always handy to have one or two blankets. Pillows work as well. And then you also need a yoga strap. So let's go ahead, and the most important prop is your wall. So I've got, these are just closed closet doors here, which is really handy for some poses. And then of course you kind of use the wall, or my favorite thing to use is just this closed door that I have behind me. So I am going to go ahead and get yourself situated near the wall because we're going to be using the wall for quite a few of the poses, and then have your props nearby. So the first one we're going to do is Zorro at the wall. If you're familiar with that pose, we do it a lot sitting in the middle of a room using what props we have, and then also working on that lateral rotation of the knee. So we're actually going to do this at the wall though. Bring your props with you. I'm sorry, bring your blocks with you and other props that you want to use. I'm bringing my blocks and my blanket with me. So let's go ahead and get set up at the wall here. Move these out of the way so you can see. Go ahead and scoot yourself up a little bit close to the wall so that you can lean your back up against it. You're going to take your feet out in front of you about hips width apart, and we'll start on the right side. So you're just going to let your knees drop to the right, but you want to turn in a way so that the right shin is parallel. If you're using your mat, it would be parallel to the edge of your mat, or parallel to the front of, if you're facing a wall like I am, it's going to be parallel to the wall. And then the left shin comes behind you to the side here in this 90 degree angle. So I'll turn this way so you can kind of see. And then your heel maybe out from the knee, and you just want you to kind of heel toe both your legs in, so that contact, until the contact can be made between the heel of your right foot and your left knee. I'm going to turn back this way. So we have both shins at a 90 degree angle. I'm going to go ahead and start our time here. We'll be here for 5 minutes. And then you have a couple of options here. First of all, just let your hands rest in your lap, and you're going to feel the left shoulder drawing away from the wall. I want you to draw. You're going to draw the left shoulder back until it makes contact with the wall. It feels really, really funny. If it feels funny, you're finding it. And then gently gaze forward. You can let your head rest on the wall that feels comfortable, or you can let it sit off of the wall, but your back is pressed against the wall. The shoulders are drawing open, pressing in towards the wall as well, and pausing here. So check in here. You might want to use some support. If you have your blocks nearby, you can always place the blocks to the outside of your hips here and let your hands just gently rest. Again, this left shoulder will gently creep up off of the wall because it's a heck of a lot more comfortable. So every so often, check in and draw that left shoulder back. You're going to feel it in the lower back. You'll feel it. You might not feel it so much in the hips right away, but you might. Everybody's different. I certainly feel it on the outside of my right hip here. We're working, emphasizing here on this lateral rotation of our right knee. And there might be a little bit of the medial rotation in the left knee, but most of the focus is going to be in that right leg. If you need, maybe the right knee is hovering a little bit, you can always place a blanket underneath your knee. When your knee is hovering, it's I don't want to say unstable, but it's a lot more supportive to just go ahead and place something underneath the knee. Maybe you need to sit up on something. Feel free to prop your hips up on a block, or maybe it would feel good to sit up on a blanket. Maybe you need some blankets underneath your shins. Just kind of work with it. Again, it's a really funky pose. It's a funky feeling, but there's so much benefit coming out of all these poses that we're going to do this evening. We're at 2.5 minutes. Again, check in. Left shoulder creeping away from the wall, making sure shoulders are pressing into the wall. And breathe here. Long, deep inhales through the nose, long sighs out the mouth. Closing your eyes. Try to let go and relax in the spaces that you can. The muscles can start to stretch a little deeper. We've got 2 more minutes. A lot going on in our body with the muscles, all the tissues. We stretch into them. And especially if you're a long time practitioner, you have to shake some things up a little bit and create or practice different versions of the same pose. Like this one is our Zorro pose. By adding in the wall, it really helps with that support so that we can deepen into the stretch in a different manner and get into some of those tiny, smaller muscles that may be a little bit more difficult to access in our Zorro that we do off the wall. A lot of these poses may seem very familiar to you, but feel so different in a good way. And that is what we want. About 20 more seconds. Okay, you're gonna slowly lift your knees up. You can extend them out long in front of you just for a moment. And we're gonna come right on the other side. I'm gonna try to do this one off my door so you can see a different view of it. All right, setting up here. Go ahead and press your back up against the wall again. So you may have scooted forward. Knees come out, feet plant, back hips width apart. This time we're gonna let the knees drop to the left. I'm gonna go ahead and let the knees drop to the left. And I need to situate so that we can have our back up against the wall. So the right shin is now parallel. Well, for me, it's gonna be parallel to my closet. I scoop back up here, make sure back is against the wall. And then the left shin is gonna be parallel to the front of you, the front, whatever you are facing in front of you. If you're on your mat, it'll be parallel to the other edge of the mat. So you want to make sure that you have this 90-degree in your left knee and the 90-degree in the right knee. Heel and knee comes into contact. And then I'm going to go ahead and start the clock because again, we're going to be here for 5 minutes. And again, making sure. I was just sitting here thinking, did I just do this the wrong way? No. Making sure that the back is pressed up against the wall, the shoulders press up against the wall. Again, your head can press into the wall as well, or maybe it feels a little bit better just to leave it up off of the wall. Relaxing where you can. Again, this is a really funky shape. You might have to finagle with it a little bit to get into that supportive space that works for you. Really going to feel it on the outside of this left hip here. We have this lateral rotation in the left knee. We're getting into those external rotators, into the abductors, all the good stuff. Again, there's a lot going on in the hips. If you practice with me in person, you've heard me talk about where it's starting to be believed that there are muscles that are lying dormant because we sit so much. We're not using them in the manner that they're meant to be used, or in the way that our ancestors or even our grandparents probably used when they were younger. So we got to do a lot of these funky stretches and funky shapes to really get down into those muscles and see if we can access them and essentially wake them up and start stretching into them, and maybe we'll get them to come alive again and in the way that we use them throughout our day. Approaching our 2-minute mark. Again, every so often check in, make sure those shoulders are pressing into the wall. Hands can rest in your lap or on blocks like we did on the other side. Just breathe here. Maybe close your eyes. Deep breaths, deep inhales to the nose, long sighs out the mouth. Approaching minute number 3, got 2 more minutes. Let's move through a couple of rounds of our breathe to relax breath. Deep inhale through the nose for 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, sigh out the mouth. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale through the nose. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Keep going. Inhaling deeply through the nose for the count of 4. And exhale, long sigh out the mouth for the count of 8. Keep going. Feeling the body relax a little bit more with each exhale. About 20 more seconds. See if you can soften a little bit more. Yeah, you can go ahead and release it. Sit the legs long out in front of you. Shake it out, shake it out. Maybe set up, scoot up away from the wall just for a moment and shake it out. Good. We're gonna move into our bound butterfly pose next. And you have a couple options. You don't have to use the wall if you don't want to. You can also sit up on the edge of a blanket. In fact, let's set it up first and see if the hips and the back would like a little bit of assistance by sitting on the edge of our blanket. So first, before we do all of that, let's set up our strap. So grab the yoga strap and you want to make a loop. So you're going to thread. Mine has a buckle or like these loop buckles on it. I don't know if you can see that. Some other ones have an actual buckle that looks like on a belt or something. So that one's going to work a little bit as far as threading. It will work and look a little different than mine. So I'm going to set this up real quick. Making that loop. If you have I'm using just a regular length yoga strap like that you would find in a studio or yoga studio or gym that you would go to that teaches or has yoga classes. If you have a longer one, I have a longer one somewhere, but if you have a longer one, that might be beneficial to use here, but this regular size will work just as well. So get your loop, put it around your waist, make sure that you have it in a manner so that you can access your belt as we come into this pose. So you can easily get to it to tighten or loosen up. All right, let's set up our butterfly pose. I'm going to scoot back towards the wall in case I end up wanting to use the wall. So first things first, just bring the heels together out in front of you and sit here for a moment. Test that out. If you are struggling with keeping the spine straight, the lower back is having a hard time staying straight, and you're feeling a lot of rounding, dipping, dropping back like so, I want you to sit up on the edge of a blanket or a pillow or maybe even a block. You test it out. But having the hips elevated will help give you some space to hinge out and forward when and if that space is created. You can also sit, show this to you a second, really close to the wall. And sometimes having that wall, you're not going to lean against it, but as we hinge forward, sometimes for some people, it helps them to think, keep pressing your butt into the wall, long spine as you hinge down and forward. So for some folks, that works for them. If you're one of those people, feel free to experiment with that. Or if you want to practice this away from the wall, just make sure that you sit up on the edge of the blanket. I actually think I'm going to try the wall this time. Let's do that. This is why I play around a lot with these poses at home. All right, soles of the feet together. Take your fists. You're going to measure, at least I would say start with 4 fists. Let's start with 4 fists. So 1, 2, 3, 4. You're literally going to count. You're 4 fists distance away from your body. The heels are out in front of you. Take the strap. You might have to lower it down your waist a little bit more. Place your feet inside the strap. You can already start to feel the tension on the inside of your legs. I'm going to go ahead and start our time here because we're going to be here for 5 minutes as well. Extend long through the spine. If your knees are way, way up like so, I want you to loosen the strap a little bit more and maybe slide your feet out a little bit further away from the body so your knees have some space to drop down. They're hovering. That's okay, because as we're here and stretching, you may start to feel that you can drop a little bit deeper into the pose. So if you're using the wall like I am, press your butt, your lower back up against the wall. Find the length through the spine. Keep the spine straight. And again, think about leading with your chest as you crawl your hands out in front of you. And you'll notice as you're crawling out, you might need to tighten your strap on the way. So just make sure you do that. Keeping that tension, holding that tension on the inside of your legs. One of our principles in our stretching practice and gravity yoga here is that time under passive tension. And so you notice as we folded forward, you may have felt like you lost the stretch on the inside or lost that stretching tension on the inside of your thighs. As we deepen into our poses, that tension you felt is the tension that we want to keep as we manipulate the pose using props to either help us deepen into it or back out of it. A lot of the backing out happens when you start to feel that the pain, the sharp shooting pain in the joints or in anywhere you feel the pain is not good. So be mindful of that. So now that we're hinging forward again, if you're at the wall, as you're hinging forward, straight spine, almost as if you're trying to take your chest to your feet, but your butt is kind of sticking out behind you and touching the wall as you drop deeper and deeper into the pose. Palms turn up, and then maybe you just let your head hang. Breathing here. Option to place a block on your feet if that feels good, for forehead support, or if you are feeling a little extra flexible and you're reaching beyond your toes, you can always stack up some blocks in front of your feet to give your forehead to rest, something to rest on as well. You may also try to play around with placing your hands up on blocks if that might feel good for the shoulders, for the neck if you got some tension there. Wherever you go, just make sure you check in with your strap and adjust it as you deepen into the stretch, just to keep and hold that tension on the inside of our legs. Getting into the adductor muscles here. Relax the neck, relax the shoulders, turning our palms up. It's that one of those nervous system hacks that we use. Let the head hang and breathe here. Not forcing anything, not forcing the body into this pose. Got about 40 more seconds. See if you can soften a little bit more into your pose. Good. On your next inhale, gently plant your palms, slowly walk your torso upright. Get to a space where you can scoot your feet out of the strap. Go ahead and remove the strap. You can set that to the side. Extend your legs long, shake it out, shake it out. Maybe punch above and below the knee joint. All right. Coming into jackknife blaster next. You will need some wall space. Bring your blocks with you. If you are practicing on a harder surface, feel free to grab a blanket, and you're going to line the blanket up against where the wall and the floor meets. This will just be support for your knees. To the side. All right, make sure there's some space here. It's a little tricky when you live in a tiny apartment. You gotta get creative. Okay, so to start this off, come into your tabletop position. You're gonna squeeze the right heel in towards the body and wedge the knee up against the space in that space where the wall and the floor meets. It's really important that you keep the knee in this space. This is the most supportive and safest spot for our knee to be in for this next pose. Oh, I got a foot cramp. That happens sometimes. All right. Am I gonna be able to do this? That foot cramp. Cramps happen all the time, guys. Either just have to kind of suck it up or whatever you need to do, it'll go away. All right. Got the right shin up against the wall, toes point up towards the sky. Option one, I'm gonna go ahead and start the time here. Option one, you have the left knee bent and you lower down to your forearms. Palms turn up towards the sky. Let your head hang. All right, that's option one. Option two, you stay here, the left knee's bent, but maybe you straighten your arms. Hands are underneath your shoulders, shoulder width apart. Spread your fingers. Relax your shoulders, relax your neck. Let your head hang. Option three, you start to come up onto the toes of your left foot here. And you have the knee to the outside of your arms. Your arms are on the inside of your left knee. And you pause right here. And then option four, you lunge the left foot forward and you heel toe your foot forward, forward, forward. And allow the hips to drop forward and down, making sure the ankle is either right under your knee or in front of the knee. As you, and check in every so often because you'll subconsciously push into this left heel, pressing your body up and out of the pose because it is a very intense pose. So who wants to do that, right? So every so often check in, you want to relax the hips down and allow the knees to track forward. Spread your fingers again, relax the neck, the shoulders, let your head hang. Really feeling the stretch on the front side of the right thigh here, getting into those hip flexors. Probably feel a little bit on the outside of the left hip here as well. Option to use blocks underneath your hands. Spread those fingers, palm the block. If you are death gripping the block, it's really hard to relax as much as you can possibly relax in this pose. Let the hips drop forward. And remember, we're trying to just find that stretch, find that tension, hold it, and maintain that 7 out of 10 intensity. So we might need to back out a little bit if we're pressing, going in too deep. We might have to use or remove some props to allow the hips or allow the stretch to deepen to find that 7 out of 10. So if your arms are straight, with the shoulders stacked over the elbows, stacked over the wrists, makes for really strong arms. Straight arms are strong arms. Remember that. And then just relax the shoulders, relax the neck. Maybe you need to go a little bit deeper. You can always lower down onto forearms on your blocks. You have different heights to play with on your blocks. Practice palms up, let your head hang. Again, check in, hips drop forward and down. And of course, you can always lower to forearms down onto the ground as well. And when you're super flexy, when you have made jackknife blaster your part of your life every single day, it's your favorite pose, right? The fifth option, I guess you could say, is to come all the way down. Your chest is laying down on the ground and arms extend long overhead. I am not quite there, nor do I have the room here to really demo that for you. So just imagine. And again, as I mentioned, you do have different heights of your blocks. You have the lowest height and the medium height. I don't particularly like this tallest height because it feels a little unstable, but it might be okay for you. Again, we want to do what we can to really help relax and support the body. If you find that you need to go to this highest height, I would recommend taking a chair or stool out in front of you and just letting your forearms rest on the stool and give you some support in that manner. Talking you through this one quite a bit. This next other side, there'll be a little more silence so you can suffer on your own. I'm just kidding. I'm suffering here with you as well. This one's really tough. We got about 20 more seconds. All right, slowly lift up and out of it. Slowly heel toe the left foot back, back, back. Come up off of the wall. Maybe you pitter patter your feet out, punch above and below the knee joint, whatever you need to do to break up that stretch. And without thinking much about it, let's jump right into the other side. So this time the left heel is going to squeeze in towards the body. Wedge your knee up against the wall. Left shin extends up along the wall. Toes point up towards the sky. We're getting a little bit of an ankle stretch here as well. And go ahead and start the time. If you know what option works best for you, go ahead and head there. I'll review them for you real quick. Option 1, the right knee stays bent. You come down to your forearms. Option 2, right knee stays bent, but you straighten your arms. Option 3, you come up onto the toes of the right foot. The knee is on the outside of your right elbow. So arms are on the inside of the knee. And then option 4, you lunge the right foot forward. Heel toe the foot forward so that the ankle is right under or front of your knee. Again, relax those hips down and forward. Arms can be straight, fingers are spread. Again, shoulders stacked over, elbows stacked over wrists. Relax the shoulders, relax the neck, and let your head hang. Remember your options here. You can use your blocks for the hands if you need it. You can also lower onto forearms, onto your blocks, or forearms onto the ground. Before I give you guys some silence in your suffering here, I do want to note one important thing. I want you to check in with this right foot. Forgot to mention this as we're on the other side. As you're practicing this, you want to make sure the foot stays planted down on the ground. The toes can be pointing forward or slightly out towards the right. Whatever you do, you just want to make sure that the knee tracks in line with your toes. So if your toes are forward and the knee is dropping out to the right, you want to gently guide your toes out to the right slightly so the toes and the knee stay in line. We are trying to help support our joints here by moving into these stretches. By support, the stretching creates the space for mobility. And believe it or not, we create space for more muscle growth. So that's all just to say we don't want to hurt our joints as we're working into these stretches. All right, we passed our 2-minute mark already. Breathing here, you've got this. Deep breath. Got 2 more minutes. This is where you might find that we're pushing in our forearms to push ourselves out of the pose. You might find that your subconscious is pushing into the right heel. Check in, take those deep breaths, allow everything to melt down and forward. We've come this far. We can do it. One more minute. 30 more seconds. Good, you can slowly heel to the right foot, back, back, back. Come up out of this pose, come up off the wall. Send the legs long out in front of you. Whew. Punch the muscles above and below the knee joint, breaking up that stretch. All right, I know you probably feel like being done after that pose, but we've got one more pose to do. This is it's going to be a passive squat, but we're actually going to use the wall for support. Have some blocks nearby, and then maybe a blanket or your yoga mat would work for this, for as a prop as well. For this squat, you want to make sure your heels are down on the ground. If the heels are not coming down into the ground, you just roll up your mat or your blanket and allow your heels to rest on the blanket. So that way you're essentially bringing the ground up to your heels instead of trying to force your heels to the ground. But see if your heels can touch first. So unlike the other squats that we practiced before or practiced in class, if you practice with me live and in person, we practice a lot of the squats where our feet are out wider than our hips. This one is going to be a lot more narrow. So you're going to make sure that the knees stay in line with the hips. So let's go ahead and start to set it up. It's a really, I don't know, it's a really funky, at least for me, it's a funky feeling. This one might be the wider squat's a lot easier for me to do. This one might be easier for you to do. So let's check it out. All right, come up against the wall. Again, have a block nearby. Your feet are going to be hips width apart, not any wider. The knees are going to be a lot narrower. So the best way I do this is I start on my toes and I kind of come up, shimmy up close to the wall. And then I just hold myself against the wall and kind of scoot my feet forward until my feet are flat on the ground. And I'm going to press my back into the wall. And you might be up a little bit higher. You might be like me, we're already coming a little bit lower. This is a deep hip flexion in our legs here. Arms are going to be straight. They're going to come on top of your knees, palms up. Now you might find it a little bit more comfortable to bring your arms in between your knees and relax your head here. I'm going to go ahead and start the time. We're here for 5 minutes. So a couple options. Again, you want to make sure the heels are on the ground. If the heels are not down on the ground, roll up a mat or a blanket and place it underneath your heels so your heels have something to rest on. Again, back up against the wall. Your hips will start to drop down towards your heels. They won't quite come down to the ground. Now, if you're here, you might find that the stretch is good. You can stay here. Or You can also experiment with sitting on the edge of a block, which I personally find you want to scoot the block up against the wall so you can use the wall still. I find that I get a little bit of a deeper stretch if I do sit on the block. Arms extend long or inside your legs here, and head relaxes or head hangs. So again, pressing up against the wall and letting the head drop. This one's really hard to do after jackknife. If you feel the shaking and the trembling in your legs, it's okay. Just take the deep breaths. It's nothing to panic about or anything like that. It's just the nervous system. I imagine my nervous system is a little annoyed and frustrated for doing jackknife for 5 minutes. But when you start having that trembling, that shaking stuff, is just the nervous system saying, okay, this is too much, it's enough. We're revisiting those deep breaths, really focusing on the long exhale. You'll feel the body relax, and you'll feel that trembling, the shaking stop. So let's move through. We just passed minute 2. So let's do a couple of rounds of breath together. And then you can stay here in silence. Again, make sure your back is still pressed against the wall. Arms long out in front of you, palms up. Let the head hang, close your eyes. Let's just take a deep inhale and exhale. Inhale through the nose for 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale out the mouth. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale through the nose. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Keep going on your own, inhaling deeply through the nose for the count of 4. And exhale side of the mouth for a count of 8. Got just over 1 more minute to go. Great, and slowly release. You're sitting up on the block. You can come up on the block. Extend those legs long out in front of you again. All right, that is it. That is your stretching class or stretching session for this evening. We worked through 4 different poses for our hips. Thank you for stretching with me this evening. If you have any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, I will see you on the mat again very, very soon.